Good morning, everybody. I I'm just feeling so overflowing with love, and it feels appropriate given our message series of Love and Even This World. And I might cry a lot today, and it's good tears, and you do not need to worry about that if I do. When I was 5 years old, I lived by myself with my grandparents for a few months so that I could attend kindergarten. Now, you all know this, that I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and the little house that we lived in at that time was on this gravel road, and it was a 4-room house, and the room in which we slept had a door that opened up directly onto the porch. When it was unseasonably warm into the fall, my grandmother would leave that door open so fresh air could get into the house overnight. And I don't have a lot of clear memories from that time, or even from being 5 years old, but I have one that stands out to me and is what is that line from that? It's a core memory, everybody. Because one morning when my grandmother was waking me up for school, I sat up as she shook me awake, and I looked out the open door, and it looked like it was still nighttime out there. And I remember saying, "Why do I have to get up for school if it's still nighttime?" And she said, "Oh, honey, no, it's morning out there. It just looks dark because it's so light in here. Watch." And she clicked off the bedside lamp, and like magic, all the light that had moments before been in the room rushed outside. And as we were plunged into darkness, I could see suddenly the gray light of dawn, the shapes of trees, the silhouette of the well from where we drew water. And I gasped as she said, "See, it is morning out there." And she flicked the light back on, and I blinked, and all of the light, like magic, once again rushed back into the room. And I said, "Oh, do it again," as I grabbed her hand. And she laughed, and she did. For what seemed like hours, it was honestly probably less than a minute. She turned the light off. We would sit in darkness and back on, and I, in my little 5-year-old sense of magic, just marveled at the dance of that light and dark moving back and forth across the threshold. I was never a kid who was afraid of the dark, because when you live way out in the country where there is no ambient light, you get used to darkness. But after that moment, I clearly remember marveling at the dark. I would stay up late and watch the phases of the moon rise across the mountains. I would marvel at the millions of stars I could see when the moon was new and the night was at its darkest. And even after we moved to the city, when I was a teenager, I loved staying up late just to experience the relative quiet and dark of a city street at 3 a.m. I loved the dark. And I want to be clear with you that I was not so naive, even as a child, that I did not know that there were bad things that could happen in the dark. But I also knew from painful experience that there are bad things that happen to us in the daylight. And the night held so much wonder and magic alongside whatever monsters that it hid, that I just couldn't hold the monsters against it. And I think that's why I probably never fully grasped our cultural tendencies that I experienced repeatedly in books and movies and TV shows and in my Sunday school lessons, that equated everything that was good with the light and everything that was bad with the dark. I just didn't experience it that way. And I think that's also why when I encountered Eastern philosophies in high school, that I was so enamored of them. That balance of light and dark that seemed much more natural when I encountered it in the images of a yin-yang, or the balance of destruction and rebirth that were embodied in images of the goddess Kali Ma, for example. And then in college, I was introduced to pagan beliefs and studied indigenous traditions from all over the world that really do honor and celebrate the cycle of birth and death, of light and dark, as just natural parts of the world, natural parts of who we are. And I think those things spoke to a deep yearning in my heart that my early religious beliefs never could quite fulfill. I still need, and I think we all do in our spiritual life, what my 5-year-old self marveled at. That soul-stirring affirmation that the light and dark are in a dance together, and we, my friends, we are all part of that dance. What I find, especially this time of year, is that I need a spirituality that reminds me that darkness isn't where evil dwells. Darkness is where life can beckon. And it can be a challenge, I'll admit, in our cultural context here in America, where we really are, folks, so steeped in Christian theologies of redemptive suffering. It's just embedded in our cultural understanding that suffering is somehow good for us. It can be hard, and I've found it hard for myself to even talk about gifts of the dark without making it sound as if I am praising the monsters that live in the dark, or maybe lifting up the pain that we find there. And so I am conscious that we who seek a liberatory religion and liberatory spiritualities, we need to be careful when we speak of the dark, that we don't equate it with evil, that we don't imply that the pain we sometimes find in the dark is good for us. So let me say clearly for the record that I do not believe pain and suffering are sacred and holy. I do not believe our pain makes us stronger. I believe it is being held through our pain and suffering that makes us stronger. Because I have known grief, and I'm sure many of you have as well, that feels like a suffocating weight through which I cannot breathe. But I have also known grief that is as harsh and unrelenting as a midday sun in summer when you actually long for the cool of a shade, or, since winter is approaching, grief that is as sharp and bright as the sun reflecting off the snow, and what you long for is a warm, dark embrace of someone you love. Pain and suffering are real. Grief touches us all, and I do actually believe evil exists. But those things are no more or less any part of darkness than they are of light. And if we only ever conceive of darkness as the place where we suffer, I think then we miss some of the gifts that darkness can offer to us. In moments of grief and sadness and pain and despair, it is our loved ones, the hand that holds us in the dark, that can give us a sense of safety and love. But it is so easy to flinch away from the darkness and the sadness. When we are experiencing ourselves or when we are facing it from someone else, we so often want to run away from the discomfort that pain is showing to us. We want to rush away from the dark place and rush right back into the light. And especially in the season of holidays. Hanukkah starts today, and it's a festival of lights. Christmas is, of course, a week today, and we decorate our houses with lights galore. We talk about shining bright stars, and I know for some people that is wondrous. But for so many of us, this time of year is a time of mourning. The anniversary of one more year without the person we long for. This time of year can feel like so much forced, false joviality and an imperative to be happy when what we want is to just sit and be still What we want is to cry and not have somebody say to us, look on the bright side, or it gets better, or just cheer up. I don't want to cheer up today, you might feel like saying. And I want to say to you that if you are in a space, whether it's for a day or for months, where you do not feel like smiling, where you cannot see the light, where you cannot be the light and you do not want to, it is okay. Because what darkness offers isn't eternal sadness. What darkness can offer is comfort for our grieving, wounded hearts. Stillness for the noise and busyness that our minds are contending with. Rest for our weary, tired bodies. Darkness can be the place we go to say, the light is too much for me right now, and I need to be still. And it is in that space of quiet and stillness that we can actually find renewal, so that when we are ready, we can turn once again to the light. A gift that the darkness can offer us is that, like a seed, we actually do need the light to grow, but we also need the dark, rich soil of the earth so that we can be rooted and connected to all other life, so that when we are able, when we are ready, we can turn the dance back again. As you know, my grandmother's been dead for many years. But it is the abiding love I experienced in her presence that held me in my own grief for her. And in the moments when I experienced grief and loss, anxiety and depression, it wasn't light that held me. It was the presence of loved ones who could just sit beside me and offer me their hand and remind me that even when I am at my loneliest, I am not alone. And I think that is a gift that the darkness promises to each of us. We are connected and interconnected to all life, and it is our connections and our mutuality in all the phases of our life that sustain us. And so this is a prayer in this season of light, in this holiday time, that I offer to all of us. As we move into wintertime, as the solstice approaches and the longest night comes upon us, the earth is moving, and our portion of it is going to lean back towards the light. But let it move slowly at its own pace. Let your heart and your spirit move at their own pace and feel what they need to feel. And let your spirit be nurtured and nourished by whatever you might find in both the light and the dark. May we, in this season, deepen our connections to each other. And may we trust that new life is being nurtured in the dark soil of the earth, even as the ground freezes. And may we know that if we too are in a season where our spirits feel frozen, that in the dark, hopeful places of our spirits, life is also still possible. As we carry grief, as we carry sorrow, as we carry worries into the new year, let us also carry those seeds nestled in the darkness that whisper to us, you are home. You are loved. Beloveds, will you enter into just a moment of prayer? Spirit of life and love. I ask that we can all make space for whatever we might be feeling in the days to come, and that in the hurry and hustle of the holiday season, that we find time for quiet and rest, that our hearts and our souls will find not a good day or a happy day, but whatever day that we need to keep making connections. Hold us all in love. May it be so today. Amen.